Darrant for this meeting of the Hamilton Area Committee on 20th of September 2023. Councillor Carmichael? No, not seeing you. Councillor Chalmers? No. Apologies, thank you. I can see that we have present Councillors Clark, Devlin and Dewar. Councillor Donnelly? No. Also present today is Councillor Falconer. Councillor Handygod? Yeah, I can see that you have joined remotely. Councillor Horn? No. Also present today is Councillor Hose. Councillor Johnson-Dempsey? No. I can see present is Councillor Keat. Councillor McCreary? No. I can also see present today Councillor MacDonald. Councillor McGeever? No. Also present today is Councillor McLachlan. Councillor Nelson? No. Also present we have Councillors Razak, Ross, Thompson and Toner. We also have a number of officers present today, and with that I'll pass you back to the Chair to commence today's business. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks for that, Elizabeth Ann. Item 1, declaration of interests. Have we any declaration of interests? No?
See Councillor MacDonald.
Councillor MacDonald.
Just to advise that Councillor Carmichael is on his way. He's been at a funeral, but he's on his way to the meeting.
Okay. So with no declaration of interest. Item 2, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 21st of June. Approve. Any matters arising? We approve the minutes. Approve the minutes. Okay, thank you. Item 3 for noting local police annual update, a presentation by Chief Inspector McLaughlin and Inspector Doyle for Police Scotland. Gentlemen.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Committee. And thank you very much for inviting us along today. If we could move on to the second slide, please. I am Chief Inspector Graham McLaughlin. I'm accompanied here today by Inspector Paul Doyle. Yep. Very happy to continue, yeah. And obviously, to start with, I'd just like to touch on April, around about April this year, you'd have been probably consulted on what was the new Lancashire Division local policing plan. And obviously, within that, the 3 main priorities for Lancashire Division are protecting our communities, safeguarding our citizens, and enhancing our service. So in order to do that, in order to drive that on over the coming period and year, it's important to talk about the demand that we as the police now face. It's been quite well publicised of late. We've been quite open about it with community councils, elected members. Their demand has changed significantly. So much so that roughly 80% of the calls we attend do not relate to crime, do not involve criminality, meaning obviously 20% is crime. The majority of the incidents nowadays that we do attend relate to public protection, vulnerability and people in crisis. A lot of that criminality is invisible. It takes place online in terms of fraud, indecent images, and it takes up a lot of police time within private dwellings. Another thing to consider as we move forward is the budget and how that's changed and the demand that is going to have on policing. Again, it's been quite well publicised. We've been quite vocal. However, police officer establishment will reduce and has reduced down to 16,600. To put some local context on their demand, in the last year, we have dealt with 2,700 concern for person reports. That's more calls than assaults, than disturbances, than thefts. Off of that, we have had to deal with 444 missing person reports. That's 29,000 hours of operational police resources. By the way I calculate that down, that's essentially 14 officers within our area for Hamilton permanently for the entire year working on missing persons. to serve the community locally for kind of Hamilton, the area. It's served by response policing, community policing, and then 2 specialist teams of which we'll touch on during our presentation. The resources as it stands at the moment are 5 inspectors, supported by 20 sergeants for the area and 122 officers, roughly, on response policing. And again, there are kind of 2 sergeants and 14 community police officers dedicated to each ward area to serve. Despite what we face and challenges and how our demand has changed and how the budgets will affect it, we are committed to delivering on our local policing plan. So I'll now hand over to my colleague Paul, who's going to discuss what we do, how we do it, or what we intend to do in order to meet that expectation. Thank you.
Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. If you could bring on the slide for violent antisocial crime, please. Thank you. So violence, antisocial behaviour and criminality associated with it is our bread and butter. Keeping people safe in both the digital and the physical world is essentially what we're aiming to do at all times. And to do that and achieve that aim, we will be relentless in our pursuit of criminals engaged in such criminality. To achieve that end, we've sought to improve our processes to support those at risk, and we've refreshed our violence reduction plans and our tactical plans around that. And to do this, we've had to work in partnership with housing, our antisocial team partners and communities through engagement to holistically achieve common goals. In terms of our violence reduction plans, what we're looking to ensure is that they are intelligence-led, that we're putting the right people at the right place at the right time with the right resources to tackle criminality and antisocial behaviour as we're finding it, and that we're engaging in consultation with elected members and our community groups at all times so that they're feeding back to us their concerns, that we can take action, and any intelligence that we can then use. Over that, to inform our plans better, we've used analytics to identify crime trends, so we're identifying the right times, places, geography and locations in order that we can make priority deployments. And through doing that, what we've found is that by putting people into these areas that we're identifying as at most risk of this type of criminality, we're better equipping our officers so that they feel more confident in terms of engaging with members of the public, and that they can then utilise stop search powers. So we're detecting more weapons and offensive weapons and taking them off the street. That's further having a greater impact on the amount of serious and violent crime that we're then having. And after that, it's about robust management of our curfew bails and our offender management, so that those that we're identifying as offenders are managed properly within our communities as well. We're also engaging with our pub watches, our Hamilton bid, and more harder to reach communities as well, that they're perhaps identifying, so that, again, we're giving that nighttime economy the proper attention. And it's not all focused on enforcement. We are engaging with the fiscal service, so we're identifying alternatives to prosecution. We're utilising mediation services through our colleagues in the council, so that we're stemming off problems before they arise to being something more serious. And we're doing educational inputs through our community safety departments and our campus officers, so that we are deterring youths away from violent crime and making them aware of the implications of being involved in such criminality. And also engaging with charitable organisations such as Terminal 1 Universal Connections to divert criminality as well. If we can move on to the next slide, please. In terms of protecting the public, well, we're always going to be working in partnership to achieve cost-effective approach and ensuring the best level of service is delivered. And that means engaging with our partners through regular meetings to discuss and plan for the most vulnerable, ensuring that our safety plans are in effect and that they're implemented and they're effective, and also sharing information and resources with our partners in these fields. The needs of the community will always be met through effective service delivery, so we have to understand our communities and the changing nature, just as Chief Inspector touched upon earlier, and make sure that we're delivering the right mix of services into these partners and these communities. To this end, we've adapted our operating models to optimise police resources for where and when they're required. And to do that, we've looked at divisionally our CID departments, our community policing, and our divisional alcohol violence reduction unit, and how we're utilising them. And this essentially has allowed us to work in partnership with specialist police resources and departments effectively, deliver school inputs around these areas, so we're increasing our education and our footprint, engaging our campus officer and community safety departments in this sort of work, working closely with social work at our MAPA meetings, identifying perhaps through our morning meetings vulnerable persons within the community, engaging early with our concern hub so that they can take that to health and social work, and again our commitment to attending joint meetings to discuss and manage those who are identified as the most vulnerable within our communities. If you go to the next slide, please. In terms of protecting our most vulnerable within our communities, as the Chief Inspector has highlighted, our demand in terms of calls and incidents has vastly changed. On the top of the figures that he gave, 3.2 million calls were made to Police Scotland, which equates to a call roughly every 9 seconds to us. And as stated, 80% of them are last resort mental health calls. It's changed the nature of what we are doing in terms of mental health, missing person inquiries and general advice to the public. But most importantly, it's changed the nature of how we're assisting our partners in that we're doing it more often. We are dedicated to supporting the changing needs of communities in consultation with them and our partnerships. And as I've touched on, our safety plans, so that we're implementing for the most vulnerable preventative action that can be taken at an early stage, robust enforcement, and a managing of offenders. And that means that the public, communities and partners need to feel involved in what we're doing, which is part of why we have a commitment to events like today and also our community councils. We've also refreshed how we intend to communicate with them and ensuring that they are getting monthly updates in a written response for our community officers. We need to seek to protect the public by providing services that are always going to be relevant, accessible and effective. And this is going to have to be delivered through a range of departments, ranging from uniform to our public protection officers. And again, as we've highlighted, quite challenging times in terms of finance, personnel, technological and physical resources that we have, or in some cases don't have. And what we're looking to do is achieve those ends through a partnership engagement. And that will be our engagement in terms of our weekly hub meetings with community, South Lanarkshire Council, Fire Brigade, Anti-Social Task Force and our mediation services, through regular engagement with our care facilities, which are going to house our young and most vulnerable, and sometimes our elderly and vulnerable, through work around our bogus workmen and the community safety department inputs that we can give to them, improving our social media footprint as well, so we can effectively give out information and education to the public about criminality and how to safeguard themselves through a different method. Through public events such as the Hamilton Bid organised Pride event within the town centre and family events at the David Livingston Centre, taking the Pride one again, trying to reach smaller community groups that might be seen as more vulnerable as well, and increasing our engagement with them and our opportunity to listen to their concerns and then act upon them. Through youth engagement, through Terminal 1 and Youth Universal Connections, and also working, especially around Christmas time, with food banks within the local community, and our community officers having awareness of what's available around that and how we can support and direct people towards them. And we'll also have a commitment to our antisocial meetings as well, with the social work and health, and supporting addiction events such as the one we did with Hamilton Accies as well. We've also been working quite closely with trading standards in order to better educate shop owners and then take enforcement around youths and vaping, with our licensing premises in terms of the It'll Cost You campaign that's just been run, and charities around addiction services. If you go to the next slide, please. And the next slide again. In terms of serious and organised crime, our plan is to deliver, maintain and adapt when needed a multi-agency plan to proactively target serious and organised criminality through effective delivery of the 4 strands of Scotland's serious and organised crime strategy. And to do this, we've adapted our operating model. We had our divisional alcohol violence reduction unit, old money, what we refer to as a crime unit. And what we've seen is that our 2 areas of concern within this area are drugs and acquisitive crime. So we've split them to give one side a focus purely on drugs and the other side a focus on acquisitive crime, which I'll mention in a minute. In terms of what we're doing around drugs, our DAVRU essentially has worked in close association with PACT unit, which is our division-wide drug and serious organised crime unit, as well as other national units, to conduct specific targeted operations within our communities that are going to focus on drug dealing in selected areas. And that's had, apart from the detections, a reduction in our drug deaths from 39 in 2022 to 28 in 2023. And we believe this is the result of dedicated operations targeting specific crime groups. On top of that, and these operations, our community police have then taken the lead in liaising with charities where we're identifying vulnerable people within these communities and getting them in touch with addiction services and seeing what wraparound support we can give in terms of partnership working around there. And that's all of it leading to a reduction in drug deaths and also a rise in detections around this within the area. Moving to the next slide, please, for causative crime. As mentioned, we now have a unit dedicated to the investigation into these thefts, and this has increased our detections and given us a more resilience in terms of our investigations. We've had an increase in our theft of housebreaking and a reduction in motor vehicle thefts. In terms of our motor vehicle thefts, we've increased our patrols in this area and we've revised our tactical plans in terms of motor vehicle thefts. And the division itself has put quite a cost value on this in terms of how many resources we're going to give on back shifts and night shifts dedicated to this area. And this has led to us diverting criminality and reducing this type of crime and also identifying those that are responsible for it. We've adapted our operating model as well to give ownership to thefts of shopliftings to our community policing team, which has seen an increase in detections of shopliftings within this area. It will always have the impact that community policing are then going to be utilised in this fashion, but we do see it as a worthwhile investment for our communities. And as mentioned, we're trying to use better use of our social media in order that we're providing safety advice to members of our community in terms of vehicle and property safety. We have seen an increase in what we would define as theft to thrive, people shoplifting due to the cost of living crisis, and we are working with our partners in retail in order to combat this and redirect them perhaps to food banks and other areas. And we're engaged with our LPARC as well in terms of our more rural thefts. Going on to road safety. In terms of road safety, as per the slide, we're engaged routinely in road safety initiatives, parking issues around the schools, supporting schools and education in terms of walking to school safely initiatives within our area, Operation Close Pass, where we're engaging and trying to affect driver behaviour around cyclists and horse riders, road safety inputs, use of the quad bikes within our area as well, especially in terms of disruption to car meets that are having within some of our retail parks within the Greater Hamilton area. Bring on the next slide, please. In terms of enhancing the service, when we talk about that, we mean what we're delivering to the public, but also what we're doing internally to make our officers better, more effective at what they're doing. We've recently, within Lanarkshire Division, had one of our sergeants deliver drug inputs to other supervisors to increase their awareness in terms of what's out there, what to look for, and how for them to take that knowledge back to their individual officers. The force is currently undergoing a Your Leadership Matters input to all supervisors to try and bring on their leadership and effectively bring about how we can serve our communities better. We're also looking at how we can engage, especially in the community policing department, in terms of diversion activities with youths through charities such as Terminal 1, Universal Connections and Kick It. We're also heavily engaged right now within 2 different football initiatives, a dance group, a boxing programme, and as of today, we're having 2 of our officers trained to deliver more football inputs with some of the new initiatives that are coming up around that as well. And we're also supporting our charities in terms of addiction, such as the Beacons, the Give It, My Support Day, and Kick Addiction that was held at Hamilton Accies. Within the police, we have also been conducting PIO activities, so essentially mass exercises aimed at supervision and how we work with our partners and how we respond to perhaps larger events within our communities so that we're enhancing our performance, our knowledge and our resilience. And we've been supporting community events, as mentioned, such as the Pride event in Hamilton Town Centre, largely the Hamilton Bid, the Blantyre Fun Day, football events, and the addiction programmes that I just mentioned. And that ends this presentation. If there's any questions.
Thanks very much for that. Any questions? Councillor Thompson?
Sure, thanks for that presentation. I can assure you, you're welcome and very supportive of the members in here. You do a great job, so thank you. 2 points, quick points. One is the parking. Do you agree or support, or the police in general support, do you think, that at schools, the police come down, it's great, nobody parks, they see the car, they see the officer, nobody comes near. But of course that lasts a couple of hours, couple of days. So more permanent thing, and also saving police time. Do you think it'd be a good idea maybe to make schools just a bylaw that no parking at so many feet from a school? Do you think that'd be a good idea? And the second one is to try and reassure the public. There's a lot on social media and that just now that softer crimes, shall we say, like scratching somebody's car, stealing from a garden, breaking a window, that'll not really be followed up. You've not got the manpower or time. Is that true, or is there any truth in it, or could you defend it in any way? Thanks, Chair.
Councillor, in relation to your question about school parking, and obviously it's a kind of a long-standing issue. We understand where it comes from. We understand parents' kind of busy lives, which involves taking their kids to school, etc. And we understand where schools are placed in a community. So actually, parking is problematic. The issue of banning it from around the schools is one I'll leave to yourselves. However, we are keen to work on it when we can. Recently we did work along Project Edward, as it was, which was all the community officers deploying to the schools, raising the issue, raising the awareness, using some kind of new kind of signs come from a part of the campaign to highlight it and promote it as well. And there's always that work that potentially can be done in the school as well. When I remember my daughters were in school here, there was the JRSOs. And again, there's that element of support that can come from that from within the school and the children themselves. So we're always more than happy to work away on the parking as and where we can. But yes, again, it's partly down to that demand. You know, we will support when we can, but can we spend every kind of pick-up time and drop-off time at the schools? No, unfortunately we can't. In relation to your kind of query around about crimes and lower level ones perhaps not being investigated, that's not really something we're looking at here at the moment. You'll have seen it advertised in the paper, yes, that there's a trial ongoing in kind of Aberdeen round about that. I think it's been piloted for a few months. Obviously what will come off the back of that is results, feedback from the communities, those affected by those crimes, and the force will look at that as an overall. We are keen here to try and continue to deliver as best we can on it. But yes, there are perhaps some hard decisions coming in the future. And could it be a line we go down? Potentially. But at the moment, no, we are still committed to committing investigations and keeping our victims, our complainers updated.
Thanks for that. Councillor Razak?
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, thank you for the presentation. Very, very interesting. So apologies. It's very interesting. I was looking at the police numbers. There's 5 inspectors, 20 sergeants. I know that 222 officers. And my question is that what were the numbers 10 years ago? Because from what I've been reading, there's a £74 million black hole in the police budget. So my concern would be that have the cost officer numbers reduced in Hamilton, or have they stayed the same?
Councillor, obviously overall, and it's been well publicised that yes, police officer numbers have reduced. Previously, going by, I think we used to commit or have that commitment from government to 17,200. That's now reduced and we're looking at 16,600. What the resources had been like of old in kind of Hamilton as such, I would need to go and do my digging, and I'm quite happy to look at that and come back to you. In general, have they reduced over the last year since I've been here? No, there are peaks and troughs with officers in the sense of absences and training and other duties that come into it. Those numbers are 122 officers on response policing. As I say then, 14 community officers covering the wards, and that's obviously the inspectors and sergeants that oversee all those different areas. But what we do have additional to that are officers in Lanark, which fall under the same kind of area of command for me. So I haven't included them in what I kind of quoted you on today, because they predominantly will deal with the Clydesdale side of things. But bear in mind, what we do have are specialist departments such as the Davru, GID colleagues, and obviously resources in the West area, which we do utilise and draw in to target, and as Paul's touched on, intelligent-led, be more effective round about how we engage in the areas to reduce their crime.
Thank you. Can I come back to you?
Okay, thanks very much for that. Any other questions?
Councillor Razak wants to come back in.
Sorry?
Councillor Razak wants to come back
No.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And apologies, I was waiting for the reply before I asked the next question. The vehicles, the police vehicles, do we have enough police vehicles in working condition? Because previously, speaking to officers on the beat, I've been told that there are not enough vehicles that are in working condition. And I think that's down to investment as well. Again, these are concerns. Have the police had a strategy yet to combat the cuts that they're going to have to make?
Councillor, in relation to the question about the vehicles, long and short, yes, we have enough vehicles here for Hamilton. The problem that comes with vehicles, obviously, is at times they require to go off the road for maintenance, for servicing. With the nature of our job, they can become accident damaged, they can become vandalised when they're out in the communities. And again, that's where you will see fluctuations. So are there times where obviously vehicles are not at their maximum, 100%, but does that stop us effectively going out from the response policing side of things and delivering a service? No, it doesn't. There are other areas we can dip into within the division if and when we need to be. Community policing predominantly should be on foot or on bike to be seen, to be visible in their community. But obviously, as we touched on, they're taking on a greater level of work to support our kind of commitment to crime. So some of that has taken their visibility off the street as such and more into people's homes. In relation to the kind of larger picture round about finances, that is obviously for the Force Executive, that is stuff that is being looked at the moment, and obviously as and when they have decided what we will do as an organisation, that will be communicated in due course.
Okay, Mo.
Thank you, Chair. My concern is these cuts that are coming through, and they will need to make some big decisions, because £76 million is a hell of a lot of money to cut, Chair. And my concern is that there will be an impact on the public as well because of the cuts, and that's the concern I'm raising. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Mo. Any other questions? Councillor McLaughlin? Well,
It's McLaughlin, is different spelling from my esteemed colleague across here. It's McLaughlin. Lachlan.
right.
Oh, God. So I had a couple of questions, but I wouldn't mind if it's okay, Chair, just to comment a wee bit in relation to the question that Mo had asked. Recently, the Safer South Lanarkshire.
We haven't touched. Can you apologies?
Yeah, okay. Wee glitch in the system. Falky's fell out and he's hitting the button to shut me up.
We get Mo all right for Turkey, and we can't get you for there.
Okay.
On you go, sorry.
Right, okay, so the Commander gave an update, and you mentioned the overall figure is about 600, and if my memory serves me well, it's impacted on this division, North and South Lanarkshire, but a reduction of about 31, I think he says. How much that impacts in Hamilton, I don't know, but you'll know, obviously. So, yeah, and the point about it's really just down to the cut in resources. It's impacting everybody, but it's a real worry. It's a worry when it impacts local authorities for the service that we provide, but when people start to feel potentially, and maybe eventually start to feel unsafe in their communities because of these the cuts in funding and eventually the cuts in numbers, it's a real worry, it's a real concern for people out there. My question, Chair, when you mentioned parking initiatives parking at school initiatives. And I know that Bert had asked you about it, but that was on one of your bullet points. What do you actually do? I mean, I'm not trying to pull you up here, but you sort of answered Bert's question. But what is the initiative? What impact? What do you do with the schools? Bearing in mind, parking is decriminalised, which most people know, and that's down to the local authority to implement that. So, how do you actually work in your initiatives to help with this issue?
Really, we're looking at education engagement, and it's trying to affect driver behaviour. So some of it will be working with the schools in terms of education and talking to the children and getting them to engage with the parents about perhaps walking to school where applicable, or taking some other transport the school puts on a bus, or getting the parents to think more considerately about where and how they're parking. And then from there, it will be police officers going along on the days and speaking to motorists and drivers and people parking the vehicles, and again, affecting that behaviour of moving them somewhere where it's safe and considerate. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if we're seeing something that's a clear offence, we'll take action there, but it is more about education and affecting driver behaviour rather than enforcement. Yeah.
And the education part is good. When you think of education, you think of the kids at school themselves, the young people, but they're tend not to be the drivers. An odd one, 6 year maybe, take their car to school. I'm going to tell you something without revealing too much information. Perhaps it's absolutely the parents that need to be educated, but perhaps might want to consider some input at parent council meetings, and I'll tell you why. At a parent council meeting I attended, I'm not going to tell you what the school is. It's not hard to work out when you think about the schools that are in my ward, I suppose. And some parents were complaining about the amount of cars that are parked at the school. And there was a female retired police inspector who was sitting on the parent council, and she gave her very eloquent opinion on it and view on it and the dangers associated with it. But one of the parents made a comment about a particular make of car that seemed to be sitting in the same place all the time. And the chair of the parent council put her hand onto the table with a kind of wry smile on her face and grabbed her car keys with the same branding on her car keys as was on the car. And she pulled the keys over like that in a kind of jokingly manner. So I took out of that, it was the chair of the parent council who was the worst culprit, and the parent council members noted that, and she admitted it by grabbing her keys away because it was her that was doing it. So I'm not going to tell you, I can speak to you privately if you like, don't want to land anybody in it, but that is just, I just thought it was absolutely appalling that the chair of the parent council, when councillors, I was there, Gavin Keat was there, we're narrowing it down the chair, aren't we? And I thought it was appalling. I didn't say anything to embarrass the chair, but I think if you're going to target some education, you might want to try and get some input at the parent council meetings, because I think you'll have a better impact here. So you can respond to that if you like, but I've just got another wee quick point. You mentioned football initiatives to working with the youth. When I was spokesperson for youth, used to have an initiative called Move the Goalposts. Do you still use that?
No, at the moment we're not in South Lanarkshire. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure where the funding came. It's certainly not something since I've been in post that we've been involved in. We do have other initiatives in place, but that's certainly not one that we're engaged with at the moment.
So the football initiatives, is it something similar to this? Is it another way of working?
Essentially it is. It's different sports centres and youth groups. Right. There's another one starting up as well. Much like the dancing, a lot of it's, the dance groups are run by the other charities such as Universal Connections and Terminal 1. Mm-hmm. And it's really just an opportunity for police to get in and start having some youth engagement and give some inputs to the youths, and also try and build a relationship with them.
Mm-hmm. And Move the Goalpost, is it really a funding issue that's come away? Because I know it was very successful, and if you've got experience with it yourself, I'm sure you'll agree, because you move it around. Basically, you're moving the goalpost to an area where there's particular issues and you get the young people involved, and it was very, very successful back in the day. So it could be, maybe even again have another wee discussion, but not necessarily here, but because I know that was successful, and if funding's an issue, we should really be trying to look at that, because it did work. It was very successful, as I recall. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor, on that and that kind of what you're describing, there is a service. I say perhaps it's just changed name and the name escapes me because I know we used it in Clydesdale, but yes, it's moved into areas. Obviously, where we are looking to divert youth, you know, that we go to where they're congregating, we understand that there's not very much on for them, and that's where we bring it in. So there is still the service. I'll clarify what it's maybe branded at the moment, but I certainly know we used it in Clydesdale recently, around about Lanark, kind of just off the town centre there, and it certainly got some great feedback from all the kind of the businesses that are feeling affected by the lack of items for youth and some of the youth as well. So I'll send you the details in due course, but there is something that exists.
Mm-hmm. And have you got any comments about my remarks regarding parking at the school and the parents rather than the young people?
Well, obviously, I mean, through the schools, we do try and reach out to the parents, and that's where the school will do that level of or degree of education through communications that go out to the school. They go direct to the parents, they don't go to the kids. There's letters in the bags for the attention of the parents. If there's particular places or schools and we feel or you feel the need to raise it, and we can look at having somebody come along and talk to them if you think that's effective. Again, it just becomes that issue of demand, but there are officers that we could look at using to get along if you feel that's perhaps necessary in particular schools. Quite happy to look at it.
Thanks very much for that. And Chair, I don't think it's in one particular school. We all know it's a very, very broad issue in just about every school you approach, in particular the high schools, because of the number of pupils that attend these high schools. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thanks. Councillor Ross. Question?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks very much, Chair. And this is probably a wee bit related to
Come back in, Councillor Ross. Right,
Chair. Sorry about that. No, it was in relation to what David was saying. I was going to, first of all, I would like to thank the inspectors for the report. It was very detailed and did illuminate a number of areas where a number of the public would not be, they would not know the details of just exactly what our police force are up to on a day-to-day basis. And I thank them very much for giving that amount of detail today. My problem was the same one as David McLachlan. I've got 6 primary schools in my area, and I don't blame the teaching staff. 90% of the problem comes from parents who are continually lettered by parent-teacher associations, but never take up the position of doing the right thing. My problem is we're coming into winter again. An awful lot of those people that come and pick up their kids stand there idle in their car for 20 minutes, 30 minutes with engines running. And once or twice getting spoken to by a policeman, I don't think that's enough, because all they do is wait and they know they're not going to be chatted to for another week or two. I really think if we had enough personnel, that the police should be enforcing the idea that you can't sit there idle in your car. And I'm sure if some penalty notices were handed out, it would make a big difference to the problem and make sure that these people do realise the imposition they're causing, both for the kids coming out of school, but the neighbours who have to endure all of the emissions from cars during that period. It's just a comment, Chair, but thanks very much.
Thanks for that, Councillor Ross. Are there any further questions? Just one wee point I'd like to raise. You mentioned about Hamilton Accies and the drug support. I don't know if you're aware that Colin McGowan, who owns the football stadium, used to do the talks at schools for us through community education. And I notice he's now back. He was at St Ambrose last week. It was on the BBC News. Have you used them in the Hamilton area or approached them?
No, not in that capacity. We haven't. Certainly something we'll bear in mind.
It's quite approachable because he'd done it quite a few times for us. And as one of the officers, education said at the time, the kid's listening because he's walked the walk and could talk the talk. But okay.
I know just on that, he did supply us with a lot of reading material for people who perhaps find themselves in custody and have addiction issues. So our community officers that were away at the event came back with a lot of educational materials that they were kind enough to supply, and we've certainly made sure that our custody offices have them, and they can be given out to people with addiction issues.
Okay, thanks for that. If there are no further questions, I'd like to thank the two officers for their interesting talk and that and answering the questions. And if you want to leave, you're more than welcome to be excused. And thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, well, while we're just waiting, the officers leaving, I think I'm going to suggest having these screens at the back of you. I don't think it's added. They should actually be in here. No, the screens at the back of you. Aye, it's just in there. There's no much point having it at the back of you, as we've got one at front. Okay, if we can now move on to item 4, Education Scotland report. Hamilton School for the Deaf, pages 9 to 14, with Fiona Leggett, the Quality Lead Officer, and Head Teacher Lauren Brown, also in attendance. Fiona, would you like to?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and Councillors. The purpose of this report is to advise members of the outcome of the inspection of Hamilton School for the Deaf. Education Scotland undertook an inspection of the quality of the education provision within Hamilton School for the Deaf in May of 2023, and this report was published on the 27th of June. It was a full model inspection with all 4 reportable quality indicators being evaluated as part of the visit. The inspectors noted a number of key strengths that resulted in leadership of change, learning, teaching and assessment, raising attainment, and ensuring wellbeing, equality and inclusion were all evaluated as being good. Both the school and education resources were delighted with that the strengths were recognised, especially the leadership of change, as Lauren Brown, Head Teacher, was only appointed into post in February of 2022. The inspection is different from others, as Hamilton School for the Deaf does not only serve pupils from the Hamilton area who attend full-time, but also pupils from across all of South Lanarkshire Council, some from North Lanarkshire Council, and as well as providing outreach support to a number of pupils across South Lanarkshire schools. One of the key priorities for Lauren when she took up post was to bring the school and the outreach provision together to work more collaboratively, and that's proved to be very successful in such a short time. The inspectors recommended that the school should target some areas for improvement, but it is reassuring that these are areas that were not a surprise, and with many of them already incorporated into school improvement plans for moving forward. These include some moderation activities and ensuring pupils are fully challenged. Progress on the identified areas for improvement will be shared with parents and carers, and Education Scotland have intimated that they are confident the school will be able to take forward the areas for improvement and will make no further visit in connection with this report. Lauren would like to take the opportunity to briefly share her experience of the week and answer any questions that you have.
Okay, Lauren.
Okay, good afternoon. So an announcement of our HMIE inspection, staff were on board right from the get-go. They wanted to promote the good practice across our school, the outreach service and the shared campus we have with Glenlee Primary School and Nursery. The process brought our whole school community together as we worked together with our learners, our parents, our local community and the partnerships we have across the deaf community to present evidence to showcase the good practice at Hamilton School for the Deaf. As we are a very unique and crucial resource across South Lanarkshire and beyond, we are extremely proud of the findings from the inspection, particularly the recognition of the strong nurturing relationships, the commitment and skill set of all staff and their specialism within Deaf Ed, and our work on developing British Sign Language across our community. The report was fair and reflective of our own self-evaluation. We have used the findings of the inspection to inform our school improvement plan, and this provides us with an action plan which allows us to move forward in our developments to continue to improve outcomes for deaf children and young people. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Have we any questions, comments? David.
Thank you, really. 4 goods there, that's good. I was going to say that's excellent, getting 4 goods, but it's 4 goods, so very well done, really pleased. It's in Martin and I are both ward councillors for the area that covers Glenlea and the Hamilton School for the Deaf. So my thanks in particular for the fantastic work that you're doing. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much and well done.
Thanks for that. Can I just ask, he's not celebrating an anniversary just now, or did I know?
Yes, we just celebrated our 30th anniversary of the school and our 40th anniversary of the outreach service back in June of last session. So
Okay, congratulations. Now.
thank you.
Any further questions?
Councillor Thompson.
Councillor Thompson?
Thanks, Chair. Just like to say thank you. My son was at that school for several years, and the thing I noticed, he'd come home and he'd tell me about his teachers, a wicked sense of humour, deaf people. I'll not get the real names. Mr. Johnson, for example, was just Mr. Johnson because he had a big tummy. And Miss Laying would be Miss throwing the hair back. She's a bit of a poser. And the head teacher would be Mrs. Gunn. I don't know if you remember Mrs. Gunn. My experience with the school for James was fantastic. So thank you and well done your report.
Thanks for that, Bert. Any further questions, comments? Okay, ladies, thanks very much for your input there. And if you want to leave, you're more than welcome. Thanks for your time. Okay, we're on to item 5. Update on the town centre. Ian Ross, project manager, to speak. Hi, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. This report, as you say, is just to give an overview of the work involved in the town centres at the moment. Members involved in other committees such as Community Enterprise and Executive Committee will have heard some of the broader work that's going on, but just focusing into the Hamilton area in terms of this report. Section 3 really just takes us through some of the background and challenges that are faced within the town centres, which I'm sure members are very familiar with, so I don't intend to spend any time on it, but if anybody wants to come back to that, please feel free. From 3.6 onwards, we talk about some of the various strategies that have been put in place within specific town centres, how we link into some of the government strategies in terms of the new future for Scotland's town centres, and some of the wider strategic work we're doing, which creates that link between the work the planning do and how that's then delivered into some of the town centre delivery. Moving into section 4, we begin to touch on some of the key activity at the moment, and as I've said, the members who were on Community and Enterprise Committee will have heard that the proposals to move forward with a master plan exercise for Hamilton Town Centre, which members approved at that committee. Section 4.1 gives a brief overview of the sections of the town centre that would fall within that master plan work, and it notes that it's quite a quick exercise over roughly a 12-week period, which will then set a framework for moving forward. And once we have that piece of work, we'll determine what the next steps are and the process for consultation. Section 4.2 just touches on the strategy and action plan that was in place for Hamilton. That's now 5 years old, and in normal course of events, that would be going through a refreshed process at the moment. We've slightly delayed that to allow the master planning work to be carried out, and we'll then refresh the strategy and action plan going forward. We also note the good work, and it's been mentioned by earlier speakers from colleagues in police around the work that the Business Improvement District are doing, and who we work very closely with in terms of that delivery. Looking at the other towns within the Hamilton area, Larkhall just touches on some of the work that's been completed in terms of the place-based programme, in terms of an award that was given through the growers, and a further award that was agreed at the May meeting of the Community Enterprise Committee to support a housing development on the former coal yard site, working with West of Scotland Housing Association. Finally, Blantyre, we have the strategy and action plan in place with them, and we're been trying to get a meeting in the diary with them. I believe the community council meeting is tonight, but unfortunately the agenda was too crowded to allow us to join that meeting, but we'll continue to work with the community council to get a suitable date. So with that, I'll just take you back to the recommendation and ask that members note the content of the report and hand back to yourself, Chair.
Thanks for that, Ian. Have any questions or comments? Martin?
Thanks for that. Can you put a bit more meat on the bones for me? It's all a bit kind of vague, and I'm quite interested in this topic. Over the last 6 years, I've been a councillor, and for many years before that, on debut, it's always been a problem in the town centre, just the different guise. Now, there's sites identified in the master plan. 3 of them are car parks. What is it that's, could you put a bit more meat in the bone around them? What's going to happen to Townhead Street car park? What's going to happen to Duke Street? How can they be mixed use? So we have feedback before the master plan comes out.
Trying not to be evasive, but there's a slight chicken and egg in that conversation. In other words, we've put that challenge to the master planning team, i.e. there are a number of areas across the town centre that are perhaps not performing. So as I said, that the list is in the report. So we all know the challenges around particularly the covered malls, and that's not just something that's unique to Hamilton. These tend not to perform well across the country, and you'll see that a number of towns all across the central belt are having a major review of how their town centres perform. We haven't, I mean, there are alternative uses that will be considered as part of the master plan. That might be housing, it might be public sector, it might be education, leisure, arts, crafts. There's an extensive list. But at this stage, I can't say to you, Townhead Street car park will become X or Y, because that's part of the master planning process. We'll bring forward the work that's carried out to look at that and go through a period of consultation with members and thereafter with the public. And I appreciate that might sound a little evasive. It's genuinely not intended to be. But I suppose in the past, what we've been looking at is that the town centre has been a series of challenged sites as opposed to the whole or large swathes of it being challenged. With Marks and Spencer's leaving, with historically Woolworths, BHS leaving the Regent Centre, with the latest news around Wilco's. I'm not actually sure if we know the future of the Hamilton store yet, but all of these that go beyond just trying to backfill retail units and makes us look at a much more strategic approach around it. So apologies if that hasn't answered your question, but the next stage of that process will give you a very clear view as to what both we and the team, the professional team appointed to do the master plan, believe the appropriate way forward is.
Come back in, Chair.
Okay.
Yeah. Come back in, please.
Right, can you come?
So slightly evasive. However, I understand the chicken and egg thing, but this has been going on for decades. So the officers must have done some work prior to this, which will tie in, I'm assuming, with the master plan, which I suggest you shouldn't have called it that. It sounds like some kind of James Bond thing. So you're kind of lording it up. So are we just taking what they say carte blanche, or the work the officers have done already on this?
In terms of the phraseology, master plan is I suppose, is just a generally accepted term. It's something that will hopefully feed into. I appreciate that, but I suppose the relevance of it will feed into the planning process and become hopefully I can't remember the terminology, but the planning put a call for information that will support the planning policy moving forward. So we hope that this will be a document that will support that. In terms of how we've been looking at it before, we've been working with all the key stakeholders. So New Cross Centre was in private ownership, and we worked with the owners of that to try to improve that asset. Regent Centre's in private ownership. we've been working with them, working with other stakeholders such as the BID and individual property owners. When we did the strategy and action plan roughly 5 years ago, the community had clearly identified 3 or 4 key sites that they felt were their priorities. They were, in the order that come to my mind rather than a ranking, they were Townhead Street, or Town Hotel on Townhead Street, which has now been redeveloped, the Vogue Bingo Hall, which there's proposals remain in place for social housing, which has been through planning, and the former Baird unit, which Wetherspoons had taken on, and who have now confirmed that they are not in a position to move forward with their previous proposals. So yes, officers have been looking at each and all of these in the past, but the difference now, as I say, is that they have all come to a particularly challenged point that looking at them as one, as to what the future is, and bringing these alternative uses in is the right way to go forward.
Okay, just quickly again, Chair, I'm very sorry. Thank you for that. I appreciate that, and I understand it's complex. Have we, or are we, as part of the master plan, looked into finding out who owns all the properties above the shops and trying to reincorporate them into kind of Hamilton city centre living? Is that something we're looking at? I know that's very difficult, I understand that. However, is that part of the thinking?
Certainly, again, town centre living is absolutely key to, and going back to that future for Scotland's towns, it's one of the 6, I think it is, key themes around how town centres are regenerated. And it's something that we're looking at, not just within Hamilton, but across the towns, working very closely with housing colleagues. We've identified a number of potential sites all across the towns, of which Hamilton is key. Specifically, have we looked at each individual property above commercial units? No, not yet, but that will identifying these opportunities. I don't want to give a commitment that we will be looking at every single property and trying to find the owners, but identifying opportunities in those types of locations will be part of that process, yes.
Thank you. I could go on all day, but I'll let someone else have a go. Thank you.
Okay, can I just, with some interference, Mo, can you wait to be requested to speak? Sorry? A 5, sorry?
It is.
Okay, I've got 5 or 6 councillors down to speak, so if you can make your questions quite short. Councillor Dewar.
Thanks, Chair. Okay, it's obviously this report, in relation to Hamilton, the report's already been brought to Community Enterprise Resources, which me and Dave are on. So a lot of this has already been covered, but just to note, obviously there's the master plan's being worked on, and there is an additional consultation that's been started, that's Andrew Crawley MP's running, which I'm sure he's aware of. She's already had 400 responses to this since Friday, and so that's an additional consultation that's going on, that's going to feed into the process in addition, which is obviously hopefully going to supplement the work that's been done in the master plan to see the priorities of the people of Hamilton for the town centre. And I think that's something that should be welcomed, and I know it's going to be worked on across all political parties, cross-party, because it's something that I'm sure that Davy and Martin agreed that it needs to be cross-party, that the way that this has been taken forward. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Davy.
Thanks, Chair. Ian, I've asked you this question before, and I don't know if you're able to answer it yet, or if you're the right person to ask, but there's been, for a long time, we've been looking at opening up Quarry Street to vehicular access. Are we any further forward with that yet? Can you give us an update?
Yes, I think you and a number of other members asked similar questions at Community Enterprise, and since that meeting we have caught up with colleagues in Roads. I believe they are preparing, I don't know who, I think it might be yourself, Councillor, that's asked them for an update on it as well. So they are progressing with that work and coming back with a timeline for implementing that. But I think it's fair to say that we are now moving to that implementation. I don't have an exact date for you. Sorry if that's
No, that's fine.
Specifically what you're looking for.
I know it's difficult for you to answer. It's really down to the roads department. Dare I even raise it because I'm just waiting on the chair coming in. The former Bears building, follow up to that, the Witherspoons building. Are you any idea how far the negotiations are going with that as to what's going to happen with it? If we're going to take it back, is somebody else interested in it or what?
The update I've had from Witherspoons, as I said, they have now confirmed formally that they're not able to progress with their previous proposals. They've appointed commercial agents, I believe it's Savills, to market the property. We've asked for information around that, and we've asked for an update on any works that they may have done. We know that the property has had asbestos in it. We were of the understanding that Witherspoons had done some work to remove that asbestos, but we don't know how far those works were done. So the net effect of that is that we will then do an assessment on behalf of the council as to whether or not there is merit in looking at purchasing the property or not, and should that be the case, we'll go through the normal process of seeking approval.
Chair, I've just got a final point I want to make in its relation to what Colin has mentioned there about the MP having circulated or started a process. I'm just a bit concerned that the MP has circulated this consultation. When you read it, it dates back to 2017 when she previously got involved in it, her and another colleague from the Scottish Parliament, and they didn't really do anything with it then. And it just worries me now that they're bringing this after they know that the council have employed 360 to look at this as an overall master plan. And I just feel that it might muddy the waters, and I'm going to get a little bit political. I think they've been a little bit political by introducing this at the time, and I don't really appreciate it. No disrespect to Colin, but I just think the timing of it is very deliberate. There's a by-election coming up, and without getting too political at the area committee, I've said it now, it's out, and I don't welcome it. I don't think it's going to be useful. It wasn't constructive before. They didn't act on anything that they said they would before. It's a 7-year-old document that they've regurgitated, and I don't think it serves a good purpose, Chair. Thanks very much.
Thanks for that, David. Ian, just in a question there, you mentioned Savills. What's their involvement?
They're commercial property agents who Witherspoons have appointed to sell their...
Is that not a conflict of interest? The Savills no actually doing the East Kilbride master plan on behalf of the council?
No, they are involved in East Kilbride. They're appointed by East Kilbride Town Centre owners. So we are working very closely with them, but in that sense, they're just marketing a property in the commercial version of an estate agent.
We've already discussed the history of that property, haven't we? The fact that the council only got £100,000 out of 800,000, and I'd be quite shocked if we ended up paying the market rate for that building. It was a previous administration that agreed to that. But when we move onwards, Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And if that wasn't political for Councillor McLachlan, I don't know what is. What absolute nonsense.
Maybe following on for this morning, I don't know.
What absolute nonsense I won't comment on any further. I was actually going to also ask about the former Bears store, but it's already been asked. My other question was, it mentions the Larkhall Town Centre Strategy and Action Plan is currently under review and will be updated in due course. I was looking for a bit more information on this. I understand you might not be able to give it in due course means due course, but if you're able to provide any other update, that would be appreciated.
Thank you. What I think, as I touched on with Hamilton, what we're looking at doing with all the strategies is updating them in roughly a 5-year rolling cycle. So Hamilton was, from memory, 2018. I think then Cambuslang was 2019-20. Rutherglen, Blackhall followed thereafter, then Blantyre, we've got Rutherglen coming forward. I think the reference to review is that essentially that's just working with the community to keep the delivery under review rather than saying we're going to restart or refresh the strategy at this point. That would come at that, roughly speaking, that 5-year cycle.
Okay. Fine. Councillor Ross, that just reminds me, Councillor Ross, the advertiser will still have a photo of me and you and Angela Crawley launched that last plan in the town hall.
Yeah, well, I would
go, John.
I would like to speak on that, and I'm going to reply to David McLachlan on his political point. I totally disagree with you, David. And the last time we did this plan, and the local MPs and councillors get involved, the survey was done and that was handed into the council, and a lot of good things came of that. I don't know, when I was listening to the earlier contribution about not much having been done, there was an awful lot being done on the original plan, albeit that Brexit and COVID has got in the way of us taking it further, and obviously the lack of general finance and the change in the way that people are actually shopping now. So I think the more public participation we've got, and that leads me on to my question for Ian, the public participation that we're looking at, I hope, Ian, that we're going out, not just asking people for a wish list, because sometimes people they don't understand the mechanics behind trying to do everything they would like on a wish list. But I hope that there's some background to whatever we're saying that we would like to do as a council, and what the options are, and just exactly how far we go, and letting people know a bit about the different trends, etc., so that we're not just going out here asking for a wish list from people. We're actually asking them to consider different things. So I think the consultation needs to be a wee bit broader than some of the other consultations we've done in the past. Thanks very much.
Ian, you want to come in? Who know about Ian?
Thanks, Councillor Ross. I've perhaps wrongly, deliberately not mentioned the work we're doing in East Kilbride, as we're at a Hamilton committee, but if members are aware of the master plan of work that's going on in East Kilbride, it's exactly as you've described, Councillor, that the work's been pulled together. We're in the midst of a consultation exercise with that community. There's a website, if members are minded to look at, I think it's ekfutures.co.uk, where it will give you a flavour of the point that we're trying to get to in terms of the development of a master plan, which would then go out to consultation. And I hope that would give Councillor Ross comfort that the intention is very much in line with my understanding of what he's described there.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Thompson. Oh, sorry.
No, I'll be very quick. Just to say that I might have picked him up wrong, but I think John says my name there, Bert. I didn't. I says nothing was done. I never says it. I don't know who says it. It certainly wasn't me, John. So you maybe have picked it up wrong.
Thanks for that correction, Bert.
That's okay.
Councillor Razik? No. Councillor Ross? Oh, sorry, Councillor Razik.
Thank you, Chair. The first thing is the name master plan. I do believe that it's a strange name. It means it harks back to Blackadder days. Master the cunning plan. You know, we have a cunning plan more than anything else.
Calling on you go, Mo.
So I think that as someone in business, they're always, well, when it comes to bringing business in, there's always three main criteria: rent, business rates, and car parking. Unless you get them resolved, then you're never going to succeed, because no business will touch you. And then it's a chicken and egg. You need a business there for customers to go there, but customers will not go there unless there's business there as well. And I do agree with the previous comments that we need to put housing above the buildings. And also, even, for instance, the old Baird site, surely we should be taking that back and putting social housing in there, and that would also put a bit of footfall in that area. And the other idea would have been student accommodation as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I think you've given a very accurate summary of the process that we're looking at. One of the reasons that covered shopping malls are struggling so badly at the moment is for two of those three reasons: rent and rates. Rent generally is higher in a covered shopping mall. Rates generally, and I am very much generalising, is higher in a covered shopping mall. The third factor that you've got in a covered shopping mall is service charge, which is very expensive in general for cleaning, security, heating, etc. When you compare that with a more traditional high street format. So the outcome of the master plan should go some way to addressing each of those. Car parking, can't have a conversation about a town centre without getting into car parking, but as you'll, again, I don't want to focus on East Kilbride when we're talking about Hamilton, but you will see in that master plan that improving the car parking, getting it in the right area and getting it at the quality that it needs to be is key to the success of town centres. You also touched on there about reasons for people to be in town centres have to be as broad as possible, and you're right, retail remains a core function of a town centre, but it's becoming less the sole reason that people go to town centre, or even the primary reason that somebody goes to a town centre, and it's giving people as many reasons to visit the town centre in the first place. Again, comments around the Bears building, those types of thought process are exactly the assessment that will be done, and as I said earlier, recommendations will come forward in due course. In terms of student accommodation, the demand for that is less than it is in for example, Glasgow. There is student accommodation that's been recently developed in the former Bell College site, the UWS site, which was the midwifery building at the back of the site. The developers of that have or had an intention of delivering some additional blocks around that site. They've paused for the time being. Whether they come forward or not, it is really down to the demand. But I think we remain to be convinced that the student accommodation, the demand is there. Although I would share your view that it would be an excellent use for that part of the town.
Councillor Ross.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It was just to come back on what Bert said. I wasn't getting it, Bert, at all. It was Martin Hosey I was getting at. For a town centre councillor, I just thought Martin should have been much more aware of what was actually going on in the town from the point of view of things that have been done to try and institute the previous town centre plan, the hotels, the Vogue cinema, etc. These have all been in a go, and other things as well. I was just surprised that Martin brought it up. So it was actually Martin I was getting at, not Bert. So I'm sorry about that, Bert.
Thanks for that clarification, John. Bert.
Thanks for that, John. I don't mind taking the blame for things that I say, and I have said a lot. Just quickly, because I'm going to have to leave here, and I think you'll agree here. I know you agree that community council is the first tier of local government, so that's why I was delighted to hear you were invited, but unfortunately uninvited. But just to say that there's a couple of community engagement things coming out across South Lanarkshire. One's in Blantyre about October the 16th, I think, and I'd like to see you come along to that as well, because there are more people in Blantyre with an opinion, and I think it needs to be heard than just, a wee group or a big group. So I'd like to see you there if possible. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks for that, Bert. Ian, do you want to?
So we'll certainly do our best to get along to that. I will just be clear. I think that just the agenda for tonight's meeting was very full. I think that it wasn't that we were uninvited. I don't want to put anything on the community council. They're certainly very welcoming to meeting us. So.
Okay, just before we move on, I'd just like to say as chair of this committee that we all need to, whatever political party you're from, we all need to be really concerned about Hamilton Town Centre. And we look at all the tour buses coming up from down south, going through Hamilton, up Duke Street, into the bus station, and from Marks and Spencer's up to Baird's, it's empty. The car park is a disgrace. And I think we've all concerns and we all need to work together to make sure we get something more presentable for the people of Hamilton. Okay? That us. Read the recommendation. Right, Ian, thanks very much for your time and your patience. You'll be glad that one's over. Right, cheers. If you want to leave your... Right. Okay, we're going on now to item 6, Community Partnership Board Update. We've got James Crumleys and Janet Weir this week. Thanks.
Thank you. This is the fourth one in a row I've been doing in terms of area committees, so I'm getting used to this room now, so been good. Anyway, I'd like to introduce myself. So I'm James, I'm a Community Development Officer with the Community Engagement Team. My role involves supporting community partnerships, and this is Janet Weir, my colleague, also a Community Development Officer, and she supports neighbourhood planning in the Hamilton area. And we actually started the same day, which is unbelievable, 9 months on. So I hope you had a chance to read the paper. Basically, I'm just going to summarise the paper itself. So just highlighting current activities in terms of Hamilton, the surrounding areas. And the paper intends to introduce the area committee to the community partnerships generally that have been developed across South Lanarkshire. We also wanted to highlight that the community partnerships are community-led and are chaired by community members. Also, we'd note as well that we don't speak on their behalf. However, the paper is to inform you of their existence. So while there's 2 at the moment that are established in terms of Clydesdale and Cambuslang and Rutherglen, and there's 2 which we're hoping to establish in the next few weeks, which is Hamilton and East Kilbride. And also, we're hoping to broker a communication link between area committees and the partnerships through this paper. In terms of sections 3 and 4, the community partnerships bring together many local neighbourhood groups and organisations within to one Hamilton locality. So they're generally made up of reps from community councils and neighbourhood planning groups known as our place our planning groups, which Janet has a lot of dealings with. Like I said, 4 of these partnerships were established across South Lanarkshire, and like I mentioned, there's 2 that are established at the moment. And also the community partnerships will ensure communities are part of the community planning partnership. So the chairs of the community partnerships at the moment sit on the community planning partnership board. Our role, particularly my role, is to provide the admin support and support with development and policy linking until the partnerships are self-sustaining. So going into section 5, that outlines sort of current areas of interest, development and activity. Also, these partnerships are receiving lived experience funds from the Community Planning Partnership to undertake their own engagement with communities to help them plan and identify local priorities which they wish to take forward. In terms of the Hamilton Partnership, Community Partnership, there is going to be an initial meeting in October, and there's more likely going to be a development session to follow that. So in terms of section 6, that was just highlighting the Can Do Community Fund, which many of you might know of already. And the area committees will be your responsibility to approve these applications. So basically, in conclusion, the partnerships are forming and having good discussions about their role and their inclusiveness. And the Community Planning Partnership have invested in supporting them and allocating funds for them to make sure the partnerships are better understanding the needs of residents in their area. There's also additional forms of investment made available to community activism in the area. That's really just a quick summary of the paper. Happy to take any questions or comments.
Okay, thanks for that. Any questions or comments?
Councillor Ross.
Councillor Ross.
Yes, thanks very much, Chair, and thanks very much for the report. it was just more or less, I've had obviously personal dealings with Janet with regard to the Hamilton situation. And I know it is pretty much fraught with difficulty trying to get the right participation, but I think she's doing all the right things to try and bring these groups together. I just hope that we get more participation from the public in general as we go forward, because really everything depends on local people coming forward. It's all about them. And I don't know if the council can give any more help to making sure that we publicise and get to all the people in these areas about just exactly why their participation is required before we can do anything. There is PB money here that can be used by these groups, and it's not got a finite lifetime. So we really need to make sure that we start doing something now in order to help these people take advantage of this. But I'd just like to thank her for the work that she's done up to now, and hope and I'll continue to help as much as I can in making sure this gets off the ground. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thanks, John. Thanks for that comment. Any other questions, comments?
Councillor Devlin.
Councillor Devlin.
Just one question I wanted to ask was the community, it says here in the statement in paragraph 4.3, the communities in Bothwell and Larkhall areas are developing their own plan. I just wonder, what plan is it they're working with? Is that the one that Bothwell Futures works to? That was all.
Thanks. James.
Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, so those particular plans are developed, so those plans are community-led ones, so we've not been involved in those specifically. Janet's been involved in a lot of the other ones, or her predecessor, but those ones, yeah, the particular groups, like the Bothwell Futures, they've developed their own plan, and they've used their own sort of, they've maybe looked at our templates, but the plans have been devised by themselves.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. I just wanted to, just in case there was something else out there that I wasn't aware of, and that was it. But no, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Any other questions, comments? Could I just say one thing, James, and I've raised it before. In 5.2, you mentioned there was 4,694 votes in the PB. And this year I raised there, as in the Hull House PB, we had a project get 600 votes, which was the local secondary school, and how balanced that was against the actual community. I think it's something that I'll raise offline with your department, because we're not too happy about that.
Janet wants to come in.
Right, Janet?
Thanks, Chair. I think the way they do it in this, it's a 3-vote system. So it's different in different areas, but certainly in Whitehill we did a 3-vote system. So the amount of votes is a third of that amount of people, if you know what I mean. So if they do it in the schools, it's usually done in a way, it's not going into every classroom and getting a vote, because that would be very unfair, because then it would obviously an advantage would go to the schools then. So we usually try and come up with clever ways to try and get some engagement via schools, but not to have the whole school, because obviously then if a parent council put in a bid for PB, then they would obviously get that advantage, because the chance of every child in that school voting, they'll probably vote for their own school. So we try and come up with clever ways that children and young people still get a vote in it, but they don't, take over that.
Right, and I will take offline. The problem is that John Ogilvie is the only denominational secondary school we have in my ward, right? And the other community grants in Hull House get 80, 90 votes. John Ogilvie gets 690 votes. A lot of these 690 votes aren't a resident in that PB area. So there's a problem there.
I think.
By the way, I have nothing against John Ogilvie. My granddaughter goes to that school, but I'm just saying there's an anomaly there when community groups who are very active. In fact, one of the groups got £100,000 for the lottery later. They come in with 49 votes and suddenly we've got a school with 600 votes.
Yeah.
And it's something we'll maybe take offline.
Yeah, I don't know if Anne Hopkins Simpson is actually here. Oh,
Sorry?
Is Anne Hopkins Simpson on the meeting? No, I wasn't sure if she was going
No.
to come online, Chair. So obviously that's her
That's
area.
good. Right, okay. Any other questions, comments?
Councillor Dewar.
Councillor Dewar?
It's okay, I'm going to clarify this for you because I was involved in the same process as you were for Hillisust and Burnbank. So, yes, the ones at Ogilvy did get a lot of votes. The way the voting system was operated was it was done by postcode. So the only votes were counted was within the Hillisust and Burnbank postcodes. So no one out with that area was counted. That's
So you're
factual.
saying the 600 were in that area?
That's factual. That's the way that process was agreed in those meetings and run by Anne.
So we've no kids for Blantyre or Lesson Hall going to that school?
I'm not saying that. The votes were counted in the postcode areas.
As I say, I'll take offline, and if you want to accompany me, and we'll discuss it.
It's factual, Alan.
No problem.
That's what it was done.
Right, thanks, Councillor Dewar. Right, now, any other comments? Do you agree with that report? Okay, thank you. Right, if you want to leave, thanks very much for your time. We now go on to community grant applications. Item 7. Request the approval. We've got 8 community grants detailed at sections 2.1. Do we agree to accept to pass these grants? Agreed? Right, any other comments?
Councillor McLaughlin.
David?
Chair, I've pressed the button too early. It's not in relation to the community grants. I thought you were going to move on to any other business there.
No. So we're agreed the grants? Okay, thank you. Right, any other business?
Chair, you and I and colleagues sitting here, and I think another colleague online, attended recently down at the Mausoleum. There was a demonstration, an exhibition from Community Payback. And I suggested then it'd be quite a good idea. So I'd like to formally move, if that's appropriate under any other competent business.
Can I say, David, following that meeting,
Yeah.
I spoke to Liam Purdy, I spoke to legal officer Geraldine, and we're taking that forward.
So we're
another
gonna
added thing to that is there are other groups within South Lanarkshire who we don't know the work they're doing. And if we've got a space, we should bring them at the area committee
Yeah.
to let other groups know. But we've took that forward on your...
My point, Chair, and it was well mentioned on the, so many people aren't aware of the fantastic work that gets done and how many local communities could benefit from it, particularly vulnerable people, like, for example, for the tidying up of the gardens. And if I may, Chair, one of the concerns that I had, Elizabeth Sands just ready to shut me down. One of the concerns I've got, so I'm saying it here, and I hope it can be recorded, when any voluntary work or work that's done by the community payback scheme is carried out within somebody's garden where they're not able to do it themselves, one of the issues is that the cut down trees or hedges or any of the garden waste has to be paid for to get uplifted because it's not a council tenant or resident that's doing it, it's the community payback scheme. I just think there's a bit of that's an anomaly, I would suggest, Chair, with greatest respect to anybody within community resources. And I think that should be looked at because vulnerable people who can't look after their own gardens can get it done. But the drawback is the community payback scheme sort of try to step back, getting too involved because they're then left with the cost, the burden of the cost to remove any waste that's left after the work that's carried out. So, Chair, if Elizabeth Ann could note that and maybe even pass that on to someone at Community Resources to consider
the cherry housing.
Well, it's not within my remit, Chair. Sorry about that.
No,
Wish
it's
it
okay.
was. Wish it was,
You
but
make
it's
a valid point, David.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Devlin.
Thanks, Chair. I'll speak. As Deputy Chair of Community Enterprise, I'll ask questions about that, David. Okay, I wasn't aware that's what happened, and I'll find out. Okie dokie.
Thanks, Maureen. Okay, no further business. Thanks very much for your attendance. These meetings are getting longer by the week. Thank you.